Erica McTavish manipulated jobs data for political purposes. I'm firing her. Donald Trump made this furious announcement on the same day the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics released a disappointing July jobs report and issued massive downward revisions for May and June. Despite widespread criticism from across the American political spectrum, Trump was unmoved and swiftly carried out his decision. The move has further eroded the government's already precarious credibility, and the financial and economic hegemony built on the reliability of U.S. government data now faces a serious challenge. Even the former BLS commissioner, appointed by Trump during his first term, sighed repeatedly upon hearing the news, stating that Trump's actions were not only baseless but also set a dangerous precedent. His concerns are far from baseless. American history is filled with lessons learned from similar mistakes. In the early days of the United States, a lack of experience in governing meant the 1787 Constitution set no standards for appointing officials. They served entirely at the president's discretion. As American politics gradually evolved into a two-party system, official appointments inevitably devolved into a political spoils system. Starting with President Andrew Jackson, an increasing number of government positions were used as tools to reward friends, family, and political allies. This led to a severe decline in the quality of government officials. With every change in administration, the U.S. government would undergo a massive house cleaning, making policy continuity impossible. This severely damaged the government's efficiency and credibility, sparking intense public dissatisfaction. Even presidents, who were seen as the beneficiaries of this system, suffered under its weight. The 20th U.S. President, James A. Garfield, was assassinated by a disgruntled office seeker he had turned down, becoming the first American president to be assassinated. This tragic state of affairs finally spurred America's elite to action. 2 years after Garfield's assassination, the U.S. began reforming its appointment system, attempting to establish a professional civil service that was stable, politically neutral, and insulated from partisan influence. For a time, these efforts were seen as quite successful. While the spoils system wasn't entirely eliminated, most administrative officials were required to pass exams to be hired. As long as they avoided major errors, they could expect long-term careers and were required to adhere to principles of political neutrality, including not participating in party activities. Even among presidentially appointed positions, many became career posts that served the office rather than the president's term. The agencies led by these officials were generally seen as independent bodies, protected from partisan strife. Although the president theoretically had the right to fire these officials before their terms were up, it was rarely done unless there was a severe conflict. Even when a president did appoint a new leader to an independent agency, the new appointee was expected to act in the interest of the department and the country, not simply to follow the president's agenda. However, as domestic tensions have intensified and the partisan divide has deepened, this system, which relied heavily on a political consensus between the two parties, has begun to crumble. When then-President Trump lost his bid for re-election in 2020, his arrogant and self-assured personality made him unwilling to admit defeat. He even incited his supporters to storm the Capitol to protect the results of democracy. Although he ultimately stopped short of staging a coup and accepted the election results, he never admitted fault. Instead, he blamed his loss on disobedient officials. This outrageous behavior, combined with the powerful hold he demonstrated over a significant number of steadfast supporters, predictably led to a political reckoning after he left office. This in turn only made Trump more desperate to regain power and solidified his determination to run for president again. Unfortunately for the country, the Biden administration failed to solve America's social and economic problems. This set the stage for Trump to become the first president to win re-election after having previously lost it. This electoral success further boosted Trump's confidence, convincing him that his decisions had been right all along. The problem, in his view, was that the officials beneath him weren't loyal enough and failed to properly execute his orders, leading to his first term's poor performance. Therefore, upon winning his second term, Trump made loyalty the #1 principle for appointing new government officials. Even lower-level government employees, who were supposed to be politically neutral, could not escape Trump's loyalty tests, let alone the heads of independent agencies appointed by the president. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, America's most important domestic investigative body, became the first victim of Trump's loyalty purge. Even though the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, was originally nominated by Trump during his first term, he was kept on by the Biden administration. Even more unforgivably in Trump's eyes, Wray cooperated with the Justice Department during Biden's term and allowed his agents to raid Mar-a-Lago. How could such a traitor hold a position as important as FBI director? Facing Trump's open hostility, Christopher Wray chose to resign before Trump's inauguration to avoid public humiliation. Trump then installed his loyalist, Kash Patel, as the new FBI director.
Patel did not disappoint Trump. Upon taking office, he quickly initiated a major shakeup of the Bureau's staff. All FBI employees with anti-Trump leanings were swiftly fired, and those with personal ties to them were pressured to resign. Patel even went so far as to use lie detector tests to gauge his subordinates' loyalty to himself and to Trump. Even the Federal Reserve, which is privately operated and only subject to government oversight, came under immense pressure. Fed Chair Jerome Powell, another Trump appointee from his first term, was repeatedly threatened with being fired for refusing to lower interest rates on professional grounds. Many American analysts predicted that even if Trump couldn't fire Powell, he would appoint a shadow chairman to render him powerless, and even circulated lists of likely candidates. If this could happen to the Fed, no government agency, no matter how nonpartisan, professional, or independent, was safe if it caught Trump's attention. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics is a prime example. As a federal statistical agency that provides data for economic policy, the department has always emphasized its independence and professionalism, and generally keeps a low profile within the government. This is precisely why its director, a Biden appointee, was able to remain in her post under Trump. However, on August 1st, for the first time since the change in administration, the BLS released job numbers that were below expectations and massively revised the data from the previous 2 months. The downward revisions were so drastic they were like an amputation. According to the BLS report, the U.S. added only 73,000 jobs in July, far below the projected 100,000. Furthermore, the number of new jobs for June was slashed from 144,000 to just 14,000, and the May figure was cut from 147,000 to 19,000. This was an enormous public embarrassment for Trump. He erupted in anger, accusing the Biden-appointed BLS director of manipulating the data to damage his reputation, and announced he was firing Erica McTavish. According to Kevin Hassett, Trump's National Economic Council director, Trump planned to install one of his people in the position to ensure that America's employment data would become more transparent and reliable. However, everyone understands that the standard for transparent and reliable actually depends on the needs of the Trump administration. After all, the global tariff war Trump initiated in April had severely damaged U.S. import-export trade. Related sectors like ports, logistics, and sales were hit hard. Even American manufacturing suffered due to difficulties in obtaining raw materials. Under these circumstances, it was only natural that the employment data for May and June would look bad. The American public could already feel the economy worsening after the tariffs.
From a logical standpoint,
considering that most people are more focused on the current economic situation and thus pay more attention to the newly released monthly job numbers while ignoring revisions to past data, if McTavish had wanted to attack the Trump administration, it would have made no sense to first release decent job numbers only to revise them down later. In fact, in the preceding months, the BLS had been criticized for releasing statistics that were too strong, with many accusing it of beautifying the data to protect the Trump administration. It's not hard to see what Trump really wanted: a director willing to fabricate statistics on demand. This has sparked widespread concern across the United States. The work of a statistician may seem obscure, but their data is the critical foundation upon which U.S. economic agencies formulate policy. If this data is no longer reliable, then the market and financial decisions made by American companies based on that data and the economic policies enacted by the government will become dangerously unstable and could trigger an economic crisis at any moment. For the United States today, a large-scale economic crisis would be an unbearable blow. It could very well destroy the financial and economic hegemony built on America's financial advantages. Even more terrifying is that all signs indicate Trump is attempting to roll back America's system of government appointments, preparing for a return to the era of the spoils system. History has already proven that the spoils system leads only to administrative collapse and severely hinders national development. For the United States, whose hegemony is already wavering due to a relative decline in power, this will undoubtedly accelerate its collapse.